In today's tutorial, we'll loom knit the Bernat Knit Seat Cushion by Yarnspirations.com. This is a great pattern to convert from needles to loom and work on the sizing and figure out your cast on depending upon your loom. Welcome back to another Yarnspirations tutorial. I'm your host, Kristen Mangus of GoodKnitKisses. Let's get started. In today's tutorial, you'll knit a bulky number 5 weight yarn. We're using Bernat Maker Home Deck color Aqua for contrast A and the color Cream for contrast B. Today's pattern is the Bernat Knit Seat Cushion by Yarnspirations.com. We are working with the Bernat Maker Home Deck collection in colors Aqua and Cream. You're going to need 2 balls of this yarn, and it is a combination of cotton and 28% nylon. So 72% cotton, 28% nylon. It's nice and squishy, and it feels really good for a cushion for your outdoor seats or indoor. We're going to start with the cast on, work our first color. I'll show you one way to add in your color and then another way to where you can twist it up the side. So we'll be changing color. I'll show you how to bind off, seam together, and make your little ties. So we'll do everything together. Let's get into the supplies. To get your copy of the Bernat Knit Seat Cushion, click on the link in the description below. For this pattern, you're going to need 2 balls of each of your colors, so contrast A and B. Of course, we're using Aqua and Cream in here. It will make 2 cushions, so it'll make a front and back for 2 cushions. So if you only want to make 1 cushion, you just need 1 ball of each color. It is an easy pattern. The size is approximately 16 inches square. If you need to make it larger than that, say an 18-inch or 20-inch, I'll cover you with some information on gauge. And for your tool today, instead of the needles that they call for, you'll need a 3/8 inch small gauge loom with at least 64 pegs, a 1/2 inch regular gauge loom with at least 61 pegs, and a 5/8 large gauge loom with at least 55 pegs. I'll go into these a little bit later. This particular loom does not have enough pegs. Know that if you use this one here instead of getting one maybe from Cindy Wood or another alternative, you will have a much smaller cushion. All right, let's get started. As with any of my videos, I always suggest to go ahead and watch the entire video from start to finish so that you know where to pick back up. We're going to go over the pattern first, so I suggest you keep watching. Okay, so first you want to determine what size you want your cushion to be. Now, of course, you can just jump right in and make this 16 inch, but it won't make it if your stitches are too tight or too loose. Now, this is according to the gauge that they got. So this is important when you come to measured items. Let's say you measure across the width of your seat and you determine, oh, I need this 18 inches. Well, what you need to do is make yourself a swatch. And this tutorial is going to show you how to make the swatch, and then you can cast on a greater number and make exactly the size that you need. And I'm going to give you all the tools, so listen up and get your pencil ready to write it on your sheet. Be sure and print out a sheet to the side and make notes. Okay, so I'm just working off of this iPad here, but on the side I have written notes to refer to. Okay, so this says right here, the measurement is 16 inches or 40.5 centimeters. So if you're going by centimeters, I'm just going to refer to inches in this tutorial. So you'll have to make that conversion for yourself. The gauge is 14 stitches, which is across, and we're going to ignore this rows section here. So 14 stitches in a 4-inch area. So you would take 14 divided by 4 to find out how many stitches in 1 inch that you get. I happen to get, when I take 14 divided by 4, I get 3.5 stitches. So there's 3.5 stitches per inch, and if you take 3.5 times the 16 inches that we want, you get the 55 stitches that they want you to cast on. Now, if you want 18, then you would say 3.5 times and change this to 18, and then this number would become 63, and if you had a 20 inch, the number would become 70, and so on and so forth. But what if you measure yours and it's a different number? Well, then you would take whatever number you get in that 4-inch period and take that number divided by 4 inches, and then you've got your stitches per inch, and then you would multiply it times the width that you want. That's it. And that just tells you, that determines how many stitches you're going to start with. Now, for our cast on, I'll show you what we're going to do. you can cast on the same stitches that I've done here, and it will allow you hopefully to get about the same size that I have. I'm able to measure a 4-inch area here, and I've got this little hard gauge measurement tool here, and it's got it all along the side. And so I'm going to measure across 4 inches and show you. Now, I happen to get exactly what they have, but yours may be off a little bit. To get this size, we cast it on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, I have 17 stitches. I need an odd number of stitches to get this stitch pattern. This is the seed stitch pattern. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look at my stitches, and let's zoom in so you can really see this. Okay, so I have a V, okay, this sticking like a V here, this V of the stitch here, okay, and then I have a purl bump next to it. That's in the same row. A row goes across, so we're just going to measure the one row across. So we have a V and then the purl, a V and then the purl, a V and the purl. So you can put this nice straight piece across here and you can tell where that V starts. So I'm going to start it right at that line here, and I'm going to go looking across and I'm going to count. So every time my purl bump appears, that's number 2. So we can count by twos. Let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And look at that. We completed that 14th one right at that 4. This line right here is actually where the 4 ends. So I've got 14 stitches across here, but yours might be 12 or it might be 16 across. And then now you know the math from a few minutes earlier. So we're going to keep going and cast on. I just want you to know that's how you determine your size. Let's determine what loom you want. You just saw part of my needle video and it was talking about the different ways to determine and measure, but what if you've never done that before? So I'm going to show you some notes that I have, and on the back of this paper I'm going to show you a whole bunch of information. You can screenshot this or take the notes and write them on your own paper if you like. Definitely print it off though, okay? Be sure and click on the link below. Now I'm writing out what I just talked about in the last segment. So 14 stitches, and divide that up and you get the stitches per inch, okay? Now here I'm making some notes. I'm going to show you on the back and I'll explain a little bit more. I wrote UK for U-wrap knit. When I U-wrap knit, I get the same as what they had when I use a 5/8 loom, okay? But say you only have a 3/8 loom and you're like, I'm not going to buy anything else. I've already got the all-in-one loom and I want to use that. Your stitches per inch are going to change, and you have to use an E-wrap knit to do this. It looks the same. It does. It's just a little bit tighter. You get a little bit more stitch per inch, and over a period of time, you're going to need to cast on. You're going to need to have more so that the width is right. So you're going to cast on more stitches in order to match the width up here, okay? And we're going to keep going here. And also I've got a number over here. This actually needs to go up to a 65. Okay, I just made it 65. The number, whatever number you do here, it needs to be an odd number of stitches. Let me just say it that way. It needs to be an odd number of stitches in order to get your cast on correctly. So let's flip over to the other side. And real quick, if you want to write this down, take a screenshot or whatever you need to do, and or pause your video and get this. And I wrote at least 55 to 80 pegs. So if you make sure that your loom has upwards of that, then you can make this up to maybe 20 inches wide depending upon your loom. So you'll need more pegs per inch if you use a smaller gauge. Going on the back here, this is where the math came in. So we had 14 stitches per 4-inch area, so I divided it by 4 inches, and that's how we got the 3.5 stitches per inch. The rows per inch, if you want to know, it had it had 24 rows in a 4-inch area, and that's 6 rows per inch. This only matters when you're trying to knit the right length to get the stitch count, and I'll go over that in another part of the video. The 5/8 inch loom. Now I use this one for a sample, but you can use a Cindywood loom or a Kiss loom that gets you this sizing. It's the same one. I'm going to do my tutorial on this one back here because I think it comes out really nicely. And if I want an 18 inch, I'll cast on 63. If I want a 20 inch, I'll cast on actually 71. So because I need to make that an odd number. For 3/8, I'll cast on for an 18-inch. I'll cast on 72, or I'll cast on this. Actually, this needs to be 73, and then this needs to be 81. Okay. Okay. For a 16-inch cushion in 3/8 with a E-wrap knit, use a cast on of 65. So if you were using an all-in-one loom, you need to cast on 65 stitches instead of the 55 that you would use on a 5/8 inch loom. Okay, and that's for a 16-inch cushion. So we're going to have to go up on our peg count for a larger size. So that's why you've got these other sizes up here. Okay, and then down here, I've also got a few more things. So if you need a screenshot, let me put all these into view. Now you've got them. So we've got for 16-inch in 5/8 with the U-wrap knit, it's 55 stitches. For a 65-inch in a 1/2 inch with, I don't know, a U-wrap knit or a E-wrap knit. I have not tested it. It's approximately 61 stitches or 61 pegs. Then these are the numbers for the 1/2 inch. So I'm going to move on down here to some of the recommended looms. You can screenshot that if you need to. The knitting board or KB loom has a bunch of the small gauge 3/8 inch. There's other things out here, but you've got to make sure that they have enough pegs. So the all-in-one loom, which is what I've got pictured here below. Also the hat loom. And you use all the small peg settings. So every little hole needs to have a peg in it. The Martha Stewart loom also works the same as the KB hat loom. Cindy Wood has a bunch of possibilities for you. Some of the most popular would be the 15-inch small round Afghan loom, and you can get it in 5/8 and has 74 pegs, or use the 36-inch or larger universal S-curve looms, and those are 5/8. You have to pick which size you want, and that's 118 pegs. The Cindy Wood 24-inch oval and the 36-inch oval panel loom in 5/8, 82 pegs and 120 pegs. And then there's a 20-inch round Afghan loom with 100 pegs. So any one of those will work for you. All right, we're going to get started casting on. I'm going to make the Longtail Cast-on. What I do is I take my tail, and I really don't need much to begin with, and then I wrap it around as many pegs as I need for my sample or my entire thing. I'm going to make a sample of 17 stitches. I encourage you to do that the same, and then that way you've got the sample to measure from. So I measure out all those when I wrap it, and then I'm going to put a slip knot where that measures to. So the way to do that is I've got my spot. I'm going to wrap around my finger a couple of times and lift the back loop over the front, and then the back loop over the tip here, and that makes my slip knot, or make it however you wish. We're going to put the ball to the back and tighten that on, and then this is the tail. So tail toward, ball to the back. That's how I remember. Now go ahead and just wrap. You can use the ball part and hold the back of here. Wrap that stitch here and lift up and over, so you've got a little bit of a stitch on here. And now we're going to E-wrap with the tail and U-knit with the ball. Okay, so we're going to E-wrap, and you can actually do this pretty tightly, it's fine. Get a nice snug cast on. So I've E-wrapped that second stitch here, and I'm going to U-wrap around the second stitch and hold it in place and knit over. Okay. And now we're going to wrap the third stitch with the tail, and then wrap, and that's an E-wrap stitch, and then U-wrap this U-wrap knit with the ball. Okay, so we're going to E-wrap with the tail, U-wrap with the ball, and continue going along until you've got 17 stitches. So I'll meet you back in just a moment. All right, we're coming to the end. You can see how I prepare for that next stitch by wrapping around that one again. Okay, I'm on the 17th stitch here. Of course, you're going to have your cast on 55 if you're using the 5/8, and then the other sizes that we went over before for the other ones. I've got my nice little tail here. Now that can go to the back. I don't need that anymore. We're going to work row 1. Go ahead and get your paper out. I want you to make a quick note. So when we're converting, the right side row, this is going to be the front row. All rows on loom knitting are the right side, but on knitting, every other row, when you're flat panel knitting back and forth, is the right side row that they call out. Now, this particular stitch pattern is a 1 row repeat, 4 needles, so this is the right side row here. So it's knit 1, purl 1, and you repeat back across all of your entire row. But when it goes to the second row, needles get to repeat that same thing over and over. But we need to do a change. So we actually switch it. And so imagine this is copied over to a second row. And then what I do is I'm converting, I just make it backwards. So I'm going to do a purl stitch, which is the back side of a knit stitch. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to purl, and then I'm going to knit. So it's the exact opposite of this one, and I repeat across. So that's the only difference. So you're going to want to go ahead and write that in your notes. And now I'm going to actually show you how to do it if this is your first time. So if it's not your first time, repeat across and then join me back up for the rest of the notes on the pattern. Okay, so we're going to knit this stitch here. Okay, now if you were using the 5/8 loom, you will just U-wrap. So we're going to wrap around. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm going the opposite direction. When we're going this direction, we're going to go wrap around this way and make our working yarn come this way. So I'm going to make it come around and make a U, okay? So the open part of the U, or let's just say the bottom part of the U, goes in the direction where you want to travel. So here we go, that's a U-knit stitch. And then we're going to make a purl stitch. So we're going to go below this loop here. We're going to pull that up from the ocean. Now, purl is P-U-R-L. It's not actually like a purl. So we make a loop, we pull the old one off, and we put the new one on. Okay, tighten that up. Not too tight. And then we're going to do the U-wrap again. So we're going to go to the front, and then between the next peg that we want to go, and then towards the back again. And that gives us the extra slack that we need. Lift up and over for that stitch, and you've made the U. Be sure not pull it too tight, or else it's going to become a flat knit stitch. Okay? And if you got it too tight, just pull on that to make it loose. I'm going to the next one. I'm going to take my tool and go under, pull up a new loop, take off the old. You can use your tool or your finger. Okay, I usually use my finger. And then we'll just put that new one back on there and just continue all the way across. So when you're working from right to left, because we cast on all in one direction, we cast on left to right. When you're working right to left, you're going to start with the knit stitch. When we get to the other side, you'll see we start with the purl. So join me back in a minute and I'll show you how to move on. All right, I'm working my last stitch. It is a U-wrap knit, so we continue that. And now we're going to work the stitch again, moving from left to right, and this will be purled. So we go through and purl that, and keep it nice and loose, and go on to the next one, and that's going to be knit. So it's knit, purl on the way over, and now on the way back on the second row it's purl, knit, purl, knit. Now if you were working on a smaller gauge loom, when you get to this section here, you will go from the back of the peg that you want wrapped, and you're going to go between that and the next peg and then wrap back all the way around. Okay, if I'm working the U-knit stitch, I go to the front and then work towards the back. Okay, so E-wrap is because it looks like a little cursive E, and if I was continuing to go along, it looks like an upside down cursive E. Okay, so you're probably familiar with E already, but the U-wrap knit just goes like this. So on this gauge loom, make it a U. On the small gauge loom, make it an E, and that will make up for the size. I want to show you my two samples here. So this sample here is working it in an E-wrap stitch on the all-in-one loom. Okay, you can see how that is. The bottom part is where I was testing it with a flat knit stitch, and you can see how it distorts this image here. It's not supposed to look like this. Here's a sample of my needles. Okay, so this sample was worked on needles. It's looser. This part is looser. This does not look right. See how it's distorted? So starting here, and I marked it with my yarn, I changed the yarn here, and you can really tell that it kind of squishes it. The E-wrap, you can kind of tell that it's twisted in the back, but in the front, it looks really great. So I would say use the E on that other. Now, if you want to use the 5/8 with the U-knit stitch, it comes out looking just like this. All right, let's keep going. Continue working on this until you have 12 rows, and we're going to change color. You're going to go back and forth on the different rows and changing color. I will show you how to change color 2 different ways. Each time you work 12 rows, it will be like 2 inches, and a 6 rows is about 1 inch in needles, but you will need to work a few more to get the length. So on a loom, so you're actually gonna not look at this row number here. You're gonna look at the inches. So when you've made 2 inches, okay, so yours might be 14 rows or whatever. So this is what you need to pay attention to. So you want to work 2 inches here, 2 inches here, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, and so on until you get that length that you want. Now right here is where you get this cool different effect here. So depending upon the length, you may need to make a change to add in a few more of these little stripes, or make these longer. Say you want to make these 4 or something like that. So you'll have to make that decision. Come back when you're ready to learn how to change the yarn. All right, so we've come to the point where we're back on the right side. I've actually knit 12 rows just to show you where I am. This is approximately 1.5 inches. Okay, even taking it from the middle, because you know it stretches out here, but the best part is really towards the middle, and it will draw up. So you have to remember that. So this is measuring about 1.5 inches or a little over 1.5 inches. To truly know how much, you would need to take these off of the loom with either a stitch marker, stitch holder, or a contrasting yarn using a tapestry needle to really know. So after you've made your swatch, you'll know how many rows that you can do without having to take it off. So you want to get it to where it's at the 2-inch mark and you're ending on the right side. And we're going to change all our colors on the right side. Let's go ahead and change colors now. All right, we're going to get our new yarn out. This is contrast B. So I've been working with contrast A this first time. Whatever color you've got, this is aqua and cream here. And we are going to take our tail for contrast B and just work it around for our knit stitch, and then we work our knit stitch here. We want to be able to trap this yarn in. You can trap it on the next go round every time you come back up to this here, but what I want to do is grab my color. I'm going to lay my old color on top of the new color and then pull my old color back around and then go ahead and work my stitch here now. So then what happens is this yarn is trapped up inside, and I can like lead this towards the front here, and so next time I'll continue doing it that way. So you want to make sure that the yarn gets trapped up in here. This is going to be seamed together. Whoops. It's going to be seamed together here, so you're not going to see that yarn that got trapped. See that right here? So because this style is getting seamed, we don't need to do that. The other way to do it is if you didn't twist the yarn and you just cut it. The problem is if you cut your old yarn, if you cut this one, then you're going to have a whole bunch of tails to weave in alongside here. So I would, on this project, just twist them up. So that's the way to do it. You can also tie it in with a knot. That's a third way to do it. I'm not going to show it that way though now. So I've got my knit stitch, and when you're ready to knit, just keep that at the back. And I've got my tail. Let's see. Got that. Here we go. That's not trapped in. So I've got my first one here. And now I'm going to knit, I'm going to work with my other yarn. So we're going to purl and keep going. And move, I'm going to move this yarn to the back now, and now I can keep continuing on. So continue on with your pattern until you get the next 2 inches of color, and then you're going to switch back and forth following the pattern in what we talked about earlier, right here. And write this on your pattern. Make sure and say work with A, work 2 inches. Don't say 12 rows, work 2 inches. With B, work 2 inches, and so on and so forth. So whenever you see 12 rows, say 2 inches, because that's the math that you're going to need. If you count this all up, it equals 15. It's actually not 16 as they're saying here. It's not a 16-inch square. This is actually 15. So you could make this 3 inches here, or the last one 3 inches to make up the difference. When we meet back up, we will bind off or cast off, and it says cast off in pattern. I will show you how to do that, and then we'll make the ties. I'll talk about how to do that. All right, see you in a moment. All right, let's bind off or cast off in pattern. You can just begin by using your knit stitch or E-wrap stitch, no matter whatever you're doing in the pattern. If that is a knit stitch, in fact, there, which this one is. And then if we're working in pattern, however the pattern calls for, anytime, this is going to be a purl because it's next in the sequence. So I'm actually going to purl this stitch. Okay, so this is what I would be doing next in my pattern. Or it would be whatever was established before. So I've got a purl stitch, and now I'm going to take my purl stitch and move it over to that knit stitch, and then I'm going to knit the bottom loop over the top. I have now bound off one stitch. I'm going to move this over. This also works in the middle of a pattern as well. So if you're binding off a stitch in the middle, like it says, work a few of these stitches and then bind off in the middle, that works as well. So now that I've moved this over, the next one in the sequence would be a knit stitch. So I'm going to knit this one. And so now from now on, I'm only doing one stitch at a time of working it. So I move this over and knit it, or work the stitch, move it over. And the next one's going to be purl. And when you're binding off in pattern, it's better to, any kind of binding off, it's better to do it all in one sitting instead of halfway. That way your tension is the same, but also when you're doing it in pattern, that way you keep in mind what the next stitch is. So all you do is work the stitch in the way that it's intended to be. Go all the way until you have 2 left on the pegs, and I'll meet you back up to finish. Now we're going to work the last stitch here, just knitting that over and moving it just as before. And once we work this stitch, this last loop is just going to get cut. Okay. And then we just pull that last loop all the way through, and you are done with that. Okay, so you bound off this here, and we've made the first cushion. Okay, so then we want to make a second cushion right here. Okay, and we've got these edges here. We've got all these little tails that need to be woven in. But before you start doing that, we're going to go ahead and make our ties. So all we do is we're going to make a little tie like this. This is just a small version. This ties them to the back of your chair. Now, if your chair doesn't need that, don't make them. But we're going to make them here. I'm just actually going to tell you more about how to do it and how to convert your pattern. So you're going to cast on with A, contrast A, 40 stitches if you're in the 5/8. If you are working with a 3/8 loom, cast on 46. That makes up for that difference, and somewhere in between for a 1/2 inch. Just to be safe, if you want a little bit more in the 5/8, you can still make it 46 and make longer ties. Now this says knit 2 rows for the needle. On the conversion, you will knit the first row, and then the second row is going to be a purl. Haha, I wrote pert. Anyway, you write purl, and then we're going to cast off knitwise. So where we cast off in pattern and did some purl stitches before, now we're actually just going to make them all knit stitches, and that's really all you need to do. And then you weave in your tails. I'm going to show you on the next segment of the video from my needle video how to work those together, how to sew all around the sides, and you're going to sew the mattress stitch on the side seams, and you'll sew the inseams in the mattress stitch in a little bit different kind of way, and then you'll just stitch on your ties in the back corners and finish that off. Let's talk about how to weave in the tails next. I want to weave in my tails. I'm just going to grab, this is actually my contrast B, and I put a wide-eyed tapestry needle in, and I just want to make sure that this is not so loose. We want to secure it in. I'm going to go up through this little outside bump here, and then I'm going to flip it over and actually work on the wrong side. Now for this one, it's actually reversible, but that won't matter to me because I just want to show you how you would do this if this was the reverse. So now I'm going to come through here and make sure this is kind of tightened up a little bit. And I'm going to find where my yarn is going around, and I'm going to follow this little smiley part here. Okay, so it's going around these stitches. All right, so I'm going to go through here and find where this imitates it. So let's find another stitch that I can go up through and get up in there. So I'm going to go underneath this aqua color And it may require a little bit of playing with it a few times to see it. And I'm going to just find this and do a little yarn play. Okay, see, now I just matched where that one came from. And now I can go up and under here and go down and do a little yarn play. And then let's go around this stitch here. Okay. And I'm going to go around and then find this other one that does that too. And so I'm just going and matching, going around these stitches. And so it's really, it really looks similar to what it did before, and you can't really see it, and it's hidden. Okay, so once you do that, you can go up through the fabric and find another spot so where you can go back down through the same area and match those stitches. Okay, you can even just, if this is the back where no one's going to see it, you can even go through a few stitches here and then clip that out. Clip that off right here. Okay, so that one's tied in. Of course, it's on the back side, so it'll hide. And then we want to go ahead and then get this part secured in here. So secure all of your ends, and then when you're ready, let's put the two pieces together and put your ties together in sewing. Okay. Okay, I've got nearly all my tails in. I'm just showing you've got the right sides together. Now, they're side by side right here. I prefer to make my mattress stitch, which is what's going to sew them together, when I have them side by side, just to demonstrate this. So you do put the wrong sides together. So I would put these together like this, and you can sew from the side like with the ends here, okay? But I'm gonna do it like this to demonstrate. Now, I've switched out my plastic tapestry needle because I think this metal one works much better. So I'm gonna go up through this end here and go through and leave a little bit of a tail, and then go right through that same hole one more time to secure that in. Okay. And now we're gonna go up through this end here, and we're going to get those stitches together. Now the mattress stitch is going to create a seam on the inside, and that's okay. Normally you're working with a stockinette up through the side, so you're just going to have to pretend that you're working with a stockinette. And you've got V's that run up like this, and then you have the sides of the stitches running this way. We're going to be grabbing this little ladder part here instead of the side of a V. So now that we're on the right side, we're going to go over to the left side. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Okay, and we're going to go over here and go in between the stitches until we find the next ladder stitch, which is right here. Okay, and we're going to go all the way, pull that in, leave a little bit of slack, and then go zigzag over to this other side and search for the next little ladder stitch that goes in between this V here, and pull up. Okay. And then now go to the other side, and now that's that purl bump on this side, and that's all right. You're going to go through that and go up over here, and you're going to grab that purl bump and just zigzag back and forth. Okay, so you're just grabbing that bump in between and go across, and then as soon as you get a few of these done, you'll be able to see what I'm seeing here, and you get this sort of lacing up of these stitches. And then you have this little magic moment where you take it and pull it together, and then it just seams it all nice up, and I'll just have to get that all nice and tight here. There we go. So now this is it put together, and in the back it's going to create this little bit of a ridge in the back, but on the front it's going to look nice and put together. So you just continue stitching all the way up nice and even, and then we're going to work your way around. So you work up this side, put these two together on the ends to where you're going to go between these stitches here. Okay, you can grab two at a time on this side. So grab the V's as they go this direction and this direction, because you're working from the end. go all the way down and then do the same as you did on the other side here, and then do it and do all 3 sides and leave one end open, because that's where you're going to slip in your cushion. Okay, so I made it to the end of my first part, and so now I'm going to show you what I was talking about. This is the bind off tail here, so I can just trap this on inside, and I'm going to go ahead and go on to this side. Now you see where I have the edge of the bind off or cast off here. I'm going to go that very first part where the V is and go underneath it. And now I'm going to go to the other side and go right across where that would be and pick these stitches up and go under those, and then go across and get the next set, and then go back where I came out the last time and go across. Go back to where I came out last time, to the next spot, going across. Okay, and then we just keep going across to the next column over. And continue going. You can just pull this and see how it's starting to make this curve, okay? And then so you're just going to continue curving around and go to the other side and continue. I'm going to finish this end up, and then I'll just show you how to put a tie into one side here. Okay, at this point you will have already stuffed, now you've stuffed in your cushion, and then you seam this up here. And I've already seamed up my little sample here. And then I've got my ties that we want to tie in. I'm just going to show you one more time how to put this in here, this end. I've already woven in the other end, but I want to show you how I do this. It kind of reminds me of like the old-fashioned candy that kind of goes back and forth here. And we're just going to work in and out of these purl stitches. So I'm going to go around this stitch here, and I'm going to come up on this side where I'm going to go around another stitch here. Around here, I'm going to go back towards the stitch here. See, it follows that stitch, and then I'm going to go around the stitch here, okay, and then go back up to where I was, and then we're going to go around the stitch here. And so you just continue going around and around, and you will not be able to tell where those stitches were. So if someone comes and examines your work, they're not going to be able to see that. So once you got that in real good, we're going to snip it off. And again, yours is going to be 40 stitches. This is quite a bit smaller. So you're just going to fold this in half and put it on the end here, and then just stitch it in. So take your extra yarn and your needle and stitch into a few of these stitches right in the middle into here, and you can turn, if you haven't sewn up the end here, you could turn this inside out and use this to help you sew through here, or you can go in and out with your needle. So anyway, you're going to just want to fold that in half, place that on each corner, and then these will be long enough to tie around your chair. I hope you've enjoyed making your loom knit seat cushion from Yarnspirations.com today. I enjoyed teaching it to you. Please, if you enjoyed this video, will you please hit subscribe and leave me a comment and let me know if you enjoy getting these full knit along tutorials on the loom and anything else you'd like to see. On behalf of Yarnspirations and Good Knit Kisses, I'm your host, Kristen, wishing you happy knitting. Bye-bye.